Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast. I'm Joshua.
I'm Kim. Let's dive in.
Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you all here with us again. We're looking forward to today. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. It may be a short conversation because I don't know how long we will have things to say about it, but generally we can find a way to ramble for a little while.
That's true.
But before we jump into that, Kim, do you have any questions from kids today?
I do. So this one comes from an 8-year-old who lives in my household. And she asked, and it's very similar to one we did a couple episodes ago. She asked, what does God look like? Do you have an answer for that?
I think God might look like how you want him to look. I think his true nature is the invisible God, who is just the all in all, the spirit, the life, the light that is everything. But I think because of his love for you, he might appear how you want him to appear.
Yeah, I would agree. I was going to say he looks like everything. And I think that he can show himself to you in anything because he is all, so he can be all.
Yeah.
To you. So that's what I would say. Sometimes I think we limit ourselves, even as adults, we limit ourselves to like, oh, he has to look like this, or he has to sound like this, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And though he will reveal himself to us in the way that we need him to be revealed, I don't know that means that's all he'll ever be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It would be, I think, impossible to say this is how he looks and it be the answer.
That's true. I mean, in the Bible, with Moses and the burning bush, I mean, it was talked about how he was so full of glory that he couldn't be gazed upon, or it would kill you, or something like that, right? Yeah. And so I guess I would say that speaks to the capacity of who he is and how big and powerful and full of energy he is, that if you were to see him in his wholeness in the earth, it might just blow you up. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it has to do with how much of him he reveals to you at one moment, because there's a thought in some Jewish minds, which we've talked about before, but how anytime you encounter God, you are encountering a very filtered down version, because if you encountered the fullness of all he was in the raw state, you wouldn't survive. And I think that there's probably truth in that. And so for the sake of relationship with us, he veils himself. I don't know. He
he
puts on clothes. He puts on a personality. He puts on something that
maybe a human form.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
So, yeah, I think that there's truth in that.
Let me ask you another question about this. We might not get to our topic. Do you think that limitation of how much we can hold of his wholeness has to do with us and our bodies here? What about in heaven and in eternity? How much? I don't have the answer to this. How much more do you think we can hold? You know what I mean? Because if it would destroy us here, then, but if we're in eternity with eternal life, there is no destruction in that. So then what?
I think it's a direct correlation to your nervous system in your body and how much you can hold here. And I don't know that that changes a whole lot in other dimensions. We've talked about this before, but I'm of a firm belief that we don't transition to heaven and instantly have perfected everything. I think it's still a growing, maturing, refining process that we go through in that situation, in that place as well. And so I think maybe, like, if you transition, do you get a resurrected body that has a different cellular memory and different capacity? Probably. So can you encounter more of God than you could here? I would think yes. But can you encounter the fullness even there? I don't know.
But do you think we have, I guess here's my next question that could be from a kid. Do you think we have physical bodies there, or we just take on a form? And can it change like other heavenly beings can change how they appear, including God?
I think the answer could likely be both. I think Jesus ascended with a body. I think he chose to keep his body. I think Enoch chose to keep his body. And so I do think it could be both. But if you didn't, does that mean that you... I think my answer is both. Like, I think you are more attached to your spirit and able to function as a spirit being that can appear in a multitude of different ways, in a multitude of different dimensions. And I also think that there is a level or a dimension of heaven that is very earth-like, where you will still appear very human and do very human things.
Got it. Do you think you can be in multiple dimensions at one time, fully functioning?
Yeah, because I think we already do that. I just think we aren't aware of it. We don't have the capacity or the neuro connectivity in the right spots to be able to be aware of it at the moment. And so I think as we mature on earth and as we mature in heaven, you become way more aware of where you're functioning from. Like in some Jewish thought, the physical body is like the shoe for the soul. Like it's not in any way to put down the physical body, because I very much so think that it's an important technology, but they look at it in some thoughts. Judaism is just as diverse as Christianity is just as diverse as all these other religions, but that it's like it houses only the very lowest portion of the soul. And so your soul is much more vast and functioning in much different places. And then your spirit is over that, functioning in much bigger places in different ways. And so I think as we become more aware of that, then it's just natural that we will be more consciously operating in those ways and places.
So you think that you can get to a place where you can hold that?
I think you can probably get to a place where you can hold that at least more of that on earth. And I would think that you could get to a place in heaven where you can hold maybe the fullness of it. Probably. I mean, I would hope at some point in heaven you can hold the fullness of it.
The fullness of operating in all these different dimensions at the same time.
Yeah.
Consciously.
Yeah.
But not necessarily the fullness of God.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's something I'm not sure of because, like we sort of talked about last time with time and time being a created thing, and therefore God has to be outside of it because he can't be bound by something he created. We are also a created being. So can we ever hold the fullness of the thing that created us? I don't know. I really don't know that answer.
Yeah. I don't know either.
What is your thought on the conscious awareness of different dimensions?
I think probably pretty similarly to you. I think that we already operate in multiple ones. We just may not be aware of it. But I also very much think that you can mature and focus and learn that. I also don't know the fullness of how much you can operate fully in multiples consciously at the same time. But that just also reflects where I am because I don't know that I could do that.
Yeah. I know I can't now.
Yeah, same. Not consciously, for sure. But then unconsciously, subconsciously, maybe? I don't know what's going on. That's the whole thing. I don't know what's going on.
Right.
Right.
I think a lot of this has to do with your ability to discern differences, to pick up nuances, and the ability to tell the difference between things. Yeah, discerning, I think, is a big part of this because we already function from those places. We already function in a place where we're getting revelation from the spirit realm. And often we just are like, wow, I just had this idea and it really worked out. Or it's like you look at people who've written novels or movies or things and they're like, yeah, I just had this dream and it was really cool. So I just wrote it down. And then you get these amazing things. And so they're already functioning from multiple places at the same time. But it's the ability to discern which one is which that I think helps you understand where it's coming from.
That's probably true, yeah.
And then I also, like, on the flip side of that, I have this thought in my mind of like, yeah, but the would it be better if you couldn't tell the difference because you were just so connected in all of them, you were just functioning as a whole thing? And I don't know that answer either.
I don't know that answer either. I think it would probably cause you to appear as crazy in each of those dimensions to others who are not fully in an awareness functioning in multiples. Because you might look like a real whack job, right?
Yeah. No.
And some people may be down with it, but others may be like, oh my gosh, this person's off their rocker.
I mean, I think we had a conversation years ago about like people who are schizophrenic and hear other voices and see things. And it's like, yeah, are they actually super broken, or did something happen that connected them to these other dimensions? And
they're just as real.
And they're just as real. And they're just as like, and their nervous systems are terrified because they don't know what to make of it. because they're experiencing multiple things that are just as real to them at a point where nervous systems as a like global whole have not developed to hold that.
That's interesting. But what if their nervous system is okay with it and they're continually told that it's not okay? And so then it starts believing what it's told and then goes, oh no, we can't do this.
That's possible too. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? Have you ever noticed that, like, if someone tells you you're broken, you'll believe them? Even if it's like a huge strength. I don't mean you, Josh, will believe them, but like,
I probably
as a person, right? As a person, if somebody tells me I'm broken, I'm going to most likely absorb that. And especially my nervous system will start doubting that this is okay.
Yeah.
Or how I'm supposed to be, you know?
Yeah.
So I wonder how much of that is influence as well, which takes me back to children and why I think some of these questions and things are so important, because I still hold the belief, and I'm also willing to be like, to have my mind changed about this, but I still tend to think that children are so much less programmed to the world, so much closer to the source of where they came from, which I would argue is from heaven. I believe that we existed before we came and were put into a physical body, and I believe that we exist after. But I feel like they're closer to that more perfected state and are less, have less muddying of the waters.
Yeah.
From the world. And so sometimes it's just a bit more pure, and they have some insights and some simplicity of ways of looking at things that we've long forgotten or been told that we're looking at it wrong.
Yeah.
And we've believed them.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, most kids have like super imaginations and can just constantly sit and daydream. But there's also I think there's a very real difference between divine imagination and like daydreaming, but it uses the same muscle. And so as an adult, it's hard to tell the difference because you've just been told your whole life that is your imagination. You're just daydreaming, when really that is one of the ways God's trying to connect with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think it's one of the ways that we create realities.
Very much so. Nothing exists that wasn't a thought first.
Right. Right. And that's a super powerful thing that then we poo-poo as though it is all make-believe, but it's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. How do we advance without that? It's kind of remarkable the amount of people who've been able to overcome the naysaying and be like, no, really, no, this is really what we're doing. That's really where I'm going.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you have to have an incredible
Resilience.
will.
Yeah.
Like, I think everything on earth is created through willpower. Everything that you change, everything that you do is a result of willpower. And so stewarding that willpower and I mean, when we talk about willpower, a little bit of it is just the like grit your teeth and do it. And so even through the opposition, like, can you grit your teeth and say, no, I believe that this is going to work, so I'm going to do it. There's a quote from Mr. Beast where he talks about how everybody thinks you're insane until it works. And then they all think you're a genius and they want to know how you did it. And so he was talking about how, like, when he first started making YouTube videos, like, his family wasn't super supportive. His friends didn't understand it. And he sort of just had to go be a lone person. And then all of a sudden it started working and people were like, oh, that's really cool. How'd you do that? And, now he's like a genius YouTuber and everyone goes to him for advice on how to be a YouTuber. But if you would have met him when he was 15, 16, 17 years old, you probably would have thought that he was like lost, that he didn't know what he was doing, and you might not have connected with it.
It's interesting.
I think that happens to a lot of people in a lot of different ways, especially with like faith. Like if you start to experience something that is outside of maybe the norm of faith, because I don't actually know that we can experience anything that other people haven't already experienced. We just may not know that other people have experienced it. But you start to experience something that's outside the norm, and then you start to like encounter pushback and different thoughts within your own mind, when really it's simply a matter of like, you just like, they just don't see the full picture yet. And maybe you don't see the full picture yet, but there's something you're holding on to.
Yeah.
You got another little fraction of the wholeness that someone else hasn't seen yet.
Yeah. That's a hard one with faith, because I think this is also a system of programming, or can be. And I've been trying really hard to get outside of that, because sometimes even when you are a leader, you can lead to the extent that you have been led, whether by another person or by the Lord or whatever. And we talk about this all the time too, I'm constantly trying to break down the boxes that I've built around what I believe and what can be possible and all of those things. And then as soon as I get out of it, I build another one. I don't even know it until I realize that there's something beyond it.
Right.
But I think it's really difficult in faith, because we rely on each other so much, that it almost seems counterintuitive to allow space for people to believe the basis of the same thing as you, but in a completely different way. Because it may not be how you've experienced it. It may not be how you have been led. It may not be how you have been taught. But I also think it's a vast oversight by thinking that we can like limit or determine what could be from God or what couldn't be.
Yeah.
But I also think we have the built-in gift of discernment, that if something is way off, you can kind of tell. But if it just doesn't line up with what you know or have been taught or have experienced at this point, it's a challenge to have the capacity to hold something else, or hold space for someone else to have that something else.
Yeah, very much so.
I think this is going on a tangent, but I think in my heart of hearts, that's my desire for the church. And I would imagine it's somewhere in there in the Father's heart too, that he can be experienced 12 billion different ways, and still we can unite because we know his love. We all know who he is. We know different parts, but can we still be united and still like recognize him in some of that?
Yeah. That's good. I think it's about, this journey is about discerning. It's also about having faith, like that what you're experiencing just might be real. It might be real. what if it's real?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I've shifted probably in the last 10 years to being like, oh, what if it's real? You're going to have to convince me to, oh, it is real. You're going to have to convince me it's not.
Yeah.
You know?
That might be a good place to be.
It feels like a shift. Like, I think that anything could be possible. And I'm really in a place where I don't want to limit. I don't want to, in my human form, be like, no, God, you can't do that, though.
Right.
Like, I just feel like it would be silly of me to try to do that. Yeah. And I think that he will reveal himself to me at the level in which I'm willing to accept him. So I'm trying to constantly stretch those things.
Yeah. No, I very much so believe that he is that he respects and he sees the long game with us enough that he's willing to not rush into a situation or push us past where we can be, because he sees a bigger picture. He sees the longer part of it, and he's willing to wait because he knows it's worth it.
Yeah. That's good. Well, hey, I think that's what God looks like.
I think so too.
Oh dear. That was it. That was a good question. See, this was a very simple question.
Yeah. And we made a whole 26 minutes and 37 seconds out of it.
It's true. I mean, that's kind of remarkable in itself. We had another topic.
It's perfect. And we didn't even get to it, which means next time you guys probably get a different topic. You probably get the one from today.
Yeah. We'll see, unless we have another really great question from a kid.
That's true. That might also happen.
That's funny. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us today, guys. Josh, thank you for your insight.
No, thank you. It's always fun. Like, one of the important parts about this podcast is we get to try to put into words what we think, which helps us ultimately figure out better what we think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And sometimes you get live processing.
Yes, that is very true. And I apologize if that bothers you, but that is real life.
That's so funny. No regrets.
No regrets. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Hey, thanks for listening. Keep up with us along this journey by liking, subscribing, and becoming a member through YouTube.
Members get exclusive access to bonus content with our guests, deeper dives into topics, and a look into other projects. We're glad to have you here. See you next time.